Please be seated, everyone. Senators with us, as are the attorneys, the jury is all present and accounted for. I hope you folks had a nice weekend. Mr. Schulke, you have completed your examination.
I have, sir.
Ms. Paul?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Please step forward. If you would stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn again.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Good morning, Ms. Cochran. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yes. I thought I'd start out by talking about your work history. Okay. I think that you have been described not only, I think you described yourself, but I think your parents also described you as a hard worker. Is that accurate? And I think you indicated that while you were here in Michigan, you were working 70 to 80 hours a week.
Yes.
Could you tell us what your schedule was when you were working at Oldenburg as well as at Mr. T's?
My schedule, just as far as the work schedule?
Yes, please.
5 a.m. to 3 p.m. and anywhere from 4 or 5 till about 10 o'clock, I believe.
And when did you stop working at Mr. T's?
End of June, beginning of July.
And at that time, it was just at Oldenburg? You were just working at Oldenburg
Correct.
after that? What were your hours at Oldenburg?
3 a.m. till, well, it depended, but 5 a.m. till 3 p.m. But we had overtime. And on some weekends, I was going down to Indiana for pool work.
And when you had overtime, how much overtime did you get? Was it every week or bi-weekly? What do you think?
Most weeks we were getting that.
And how many
We worked
hours?
Saturday and Sunday as well.
Now, after you moved back to Indiana, what were you doing for employment?
I did different contractor work, but I also did sprinkler installation and service and repair.
And was that on a regular basis or was that intermittent?
I started there April 1st, 2015.
And again, how many hours a week were you getting there?
A lot, anywhere from 60 on up.
Were you also waitressing at that time?
At that time, no.
Did you work at Denny's when you were in Indiana?
For a couple months in 2016.
And what months were those?
I want to say December, January, or no, maybe January, February. I don't know offhand.
I mean, that was just this past year. You don't know when you were working there?
Correct, yeah, I'm not for sure on the months.
Now, I believe that you indicated that you had a pool business with your husband in the past.
Correct.
And what years was that?
2000, he started in 2001. It was closed 2013, and then it was made into a corporation, and that was until 2014, I believe. I don't know the exact dates. It was still the same name, just a different organization.
And when you indicated that you had a pool business, what were the duties or what were the responsibilities of the pool business?
Building pools, servicing them, repairs.
In-ground or above-ground?
Both. Installation of above ground.
And repair of in-ground? Were you doing repairs of the in-ground pools?
Correct.
And what was your role? Were you the bookkeeper, the salesperson? Did you do the physical labor?
I did mainly a little bit of everything. In 2011, I ended up doing all of it, including the physical labor.
And why is that?
Jason wasn't working in 2011. He'd work some days, but he was officially unemployed.
And why?
He had sciatica. He would have spasms in his back.
Did you go back to school when you moved back to Indiana?
You're saying in 2015?
Correct.
No.
Okay. Did Jason go back to school when you guys moved back to Indiana?
He had been going to school while he was up here.
Online?
Yes.
So when he was in Indiana, did he actually physically go to school?
Yes.
And how many days a week was that?
I believe 4. One semester was 4.
Would that be an all-day thing for him?
No. I don't remember the schedule, but Monday and Wednesday might have been the longer days. Tuesday, Thursday would be shorter days, maybe like 1 class.
Now, if I heard your testimony correctly, 5 to 6 nights you would be making dinner over at Chris's apartment?
Up to that point, yes.
And how many, what time would you arrive?
It varied. He usually got done working later than me. Usually he'd be home anywhere from 4:15 to 4:30, sometimes later, sometimes earlier.
And would you arrive shortly after he got done with work?
Yes.
And then what time would you leave his apartment?
It varied, but it was usually before 9, sometimes before 8. He went to bed early.
And you were also seeing Eric at the same time?
And some nights, correct.
And would those be nights that you didn't see Chris or nights that you would see him after you saw Chris?
Both.
And then when did you see Jason? In the mornings before you left for work?
If he was up.
So sometimes when you left for work, he wasn't even awake?
Most mornings he was, but there were some times where he was sleeping.
So there were days when you were seeing all 3 men at the same time?
Correct.
Now, your testimony on Friday was that Jason was increasingly abusive during your marriage and you were incredibly fearful. Was that accurate?
Yes.
And your testimony Friday was that he held a gun up to your head at least 20 times?
If not more.
So you were so afraid of him, you taunted him by being with several other men at the same time?
I didn't taunt him intentionally, but I was seeing other men when we were separated.
Now, you described your relationship with Chris as a great relationship. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Hardly ever fought. Is that accurate?
We only fought once.
And that was when your coworkers found out about the relationship?
Correct.
Now, how did they find out about the relationship?
The guys were razzing him at work, and I guess by his reactions or what he had said that they took it as him saying yes, there was a relationship.
Was there any discussion about seeing your truck at his apartment?
Somebody had said that, but I don't know if it was before or after that.
Was he mad at you because they found out?
I think he was more mad in general.
Okay, so why would he be mad at you if you didn't do anything?
We were having a relationship. Our actions would be at work.
You were having, can you explain?
Just the way we would talk in passing.
If you didn't do anything, why would he be mad at you?
Because of the situation.
Are you telling us Chris was an unreasonable person?
No, he was. He was very reasonable.
Now, your testimony was that you parked your truck by Century 21 on that side of the street, 4th Avenue. Is that accurate?
Is that 189
Yes.
also? I've parked there, and I've also parked in the IGA parking lot.
So you parked your truck out in the open. There was no hiding in your truck at that time?
Correct.
You didn't park it several streets away?
Correct.
Now, I think that you indicated that Jason knew about your relationships.
Yes.
Are you including your relationship with Eric?
Yes.
When you and Chris were together, isn't it true that you did not go out to eat, you did not go to wineries, you didn't go to basketball games?
We didn't go to wineries, basketball games. We did go to a couple places in town.
Like McDonald's?
And yes, McDonald's and somewhere on, I think it's Happy Trails on 189.
But he didn't take you to Alice's or to the nicer restaurants around here?
No, we chose not to.
And were you aware that Chris Regan was a regular user of Match.com?
Yes.
And did you know that he already had girls set up to meet him in North Carolina?
Yes.
And it's your testimony that he asked you to go with him to North Carolina?
He had asked me once.
Why would he ask you to go with him to North Carolina when he wouldn't take you to any of the restaurants around town, when he fought with you over people finding out about your relationship?
Can you repeat the question?
Why would he take you or ask you to go with him to North Carolina when he wouldn't even take you to restaurants around town?
Because he enjoyed our time together, and here I was a married woman.
The truth is, isn't it, that he would not take you or ask you to go to North Carolina?
That's incorrect.
Now, let's talk about Jason. You indicated that he was the boy next door.
Yes.
He grew up next door to you?
Yes.
That's how you met, right?
Correct.
And you never told people that he was abusive until this case came about, did you?
Until after.
And you never told people that he threatened you until this case came about, right?
Until after.
And you told Detective Ogden that you were self-sufficient, correct?
Yes.
And you also told Detective Ogden and Officer Frizzo that you worked at a domestic violence shelter, right?
I volunteered, yes.
And when did you volunteer at a domestic violence shelter?
I did a couple different times. One would be 2002, one would be 2008, I believe.
And how long?
A couple months each time.
So you were well versed in the symptoms of domestic violence, is that accurate?
I believe so.
You believe you were?
I've seen a lot of different scenarios, yes.
And you heard your parents' testimony that you were a strong and self-sufficient person, correct?
Correct.
You're a take-charge person. You get things done, don't you?
I would say I was independent for a while.
Yeah. Well, you're the one that worked, correct?
Yes.
You're the one that paid the bills, correct?
Correct.
You're the one that took care of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
Jason didn't drive around town, did he?
He had driven a few times.
But he didn't like to drive because he used marijuana and it made him foggy, didn't
He still drove.
he? So, you're a take-charge person, right?
I used to be.
Did you tell Detective Ogden that Jason worshipped the ground you walked on?
I did tell him that.
And it's your testimony that you were so fearful of Jason's jealousy that you left every night to go be with Chris or Eric?
What do you mean by that?
Is it your testimony that you were so fearful of Jason that you still left every night to go be with Eric and Chris?
I would leave almost every night
Because you were fearful?
because I wanted out of the house. He didn't know where I was going.
You didn't even bother to hide your truck. That's how fearful you were. Is that accurate to say?
I didn't hide my truck only a few times at IGA.
Now, in your letter to your parents, your goodbye letter, you admitted to them that you could have left, correct?
From Jason?
Yes.
I wish I would have.
You admitted to them that you could have gotten help, correct?
I wish I would have.
And you said if Jason was going to kill you, he would have done it, correct?
That was my opinion.
And you also told your parents that you bonded with Jason even more after Chris's death than the investigation. Isn't that accurate?
That was in my words that I wrote down. It's not something I believe.
So you wrote it down, but you didn't believe it? That's what you're telling the jury? So that was a lie?
Yes.
Now, you talked about animals on Friday. Did you ever tell your brother Colton that you and Jason fed your victims to your pigs and that the family then ate those pigs?
No, I did not.
You never told your brother Colton that?
I never told my brother that me and Jason fed victims to the pigs.
Did you tell your brother that Jason alone fed victims to the pigs?
Yes, I did.
Why did you tell your brother that?
Just something I told him.
When did that occur?
I believe I talked to him on the phone here, or maybe in his visit.
Was that the truth or was that a lie?
A lie.
Now, You indicated, I believe, during your testimony that you knew Chris's new job was going to be starting in November. Is that correct?
Correct.
And do you recall the date?
That he was supposed to start?
Right.
I believe the 10th.
And were you aware of his drug test on November 15th?
Yes.
Excuse me, on October 15th.
I know you're not, yes.
Okay. And so at the time that he took his drug test, even probably before October 13th, October 14th, you were aware that Chris was going to be leaving for North Carolina, right?
Correct.
So he was not a threat at that point in time, was he?
He was what?
Not a threat to you or Jason at that point in time, was he?
He was never a threat to me.
Now, let's talk about your letter call with Mr. Ammerman. I believe we heard on the phone call that you told Mr. Ammerman, please don't, when they were talking about sending the letter. Is that accurate?
I heard that, yes.
And then said, do what you have to do, right?
Correct.
And you cried during that call.
Yes.
You actually believe Jason would never hurt you, correct?
That's not true.
No? You told Detective Ogden you worshiped the girl in Cochran, right?
I had told him that, yes.
And you told Chet Cochran that Jason saved you, didn't you?
I don't know.
You don't recall having a conversation with Chet Cochran after the call where you told him that Jason saved you again, even after death?
I remember talking to Chet afterwards, but I don't remember what was said. I know I was upset though.
And crying at that time?
Yeah, I was very upset.
So that was right after you received the letter call, right?
Correct.
Chet was there when you got the call from Walt Ammerman?
I know he was there outside afterwards. I don't know if he was right by the door or not.
Okay, so after you got off the phone with Walt Ammerman, you cried about the letter call?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about your phone. I believe your testimony was that you told Chris and Eric your phone was broken on October 14th. Is that accurate?
I don't know if that was the same time. I know Chris, I told Chris that. I told both guys that the phone was broken on several different occasions.
And you told law enforcement you were out of minutes or your bill wasn't paid, correct?
That I was what?
Out of minutes or your bill wasn't paid?
I might have said that, yes.
And that you used Jason's phone to contact Chris on the 14th, right?
Correct.
Did you also tell Detective Ogden that Jason was the one who contacted Chris?
I might have, I don't know.
Okay, well, which one is accurate? Jason contacted Chris or you contacted Chris?
I contacted Chris on the 14th.
Now, there's been some discussion about who was smarter, I guess, you or Jason. And I believe that you indicated to Detective Ogden that Jason was very smart. Is that correct?
Yes.
But that you're smarter. Do you believe that?
No, I don't.
But that's what you told the detective, right?
Correct.
So you also said that Jason was sloppy and made mistakes. Is that accurate?
Yes, by what he told me, yes.
Okay. And in your letter to your parents, you told them that Jason was sloppy and made mistakes, correct?
I'm not for sure, but yes.
And you told your parents in your letter that you were very precise in your cover-up. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Now, you knew that if Jason had gone to the apartment on October 13th, that he would get caught because he was shooting in an apartment building, right?
That was never a plan of his.
That was never a plan of Jason's?
Correct.
So that's what you told Detective Ogden, but that was also a lie.
Correct.
So you knew on the 13th, though, that Jason planned to kill him?
No.
So was that a lie, or you told that to Detective Ogden?
Correct.
And why would you lie about that?
I lied about a lot of things to him.
Well, why?
Why?
This is your chance to explain to the jury why you lied. Tell us why you lied.
Because every time I had an interview or an interrogation with him, everything I said was wrong.
What do you mean everything you said was wrong?
He would question me until I said what was supposed to be said.
But that's not what you told the jury on Friday, is it?
There's multiple reasons.
Multiple reasons for your lies?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you tell us the rest of the reasons?
I feel guilty that I'm here in criticism.
So you lied and said that you were the one responsible, that you knew that Jason planned it, and that you had a murder pact and that you were supposed to kick him down the stairs.
That was never true.
Those were all lies, and you made up those because you felt guilty.
And
You
I
realize
wanted-
that doesn't sound reasonable.
This whole thing isn't reasonable.
What?
I was very suicidal. I was depressed. I wanted people to think I was a monster and that I was capable of doing this.
Well, if you were suicidal, why not just commit suicide?
I tried
When?
numerous times. The last time would be in Kentucky.
You could have done it by overdose, right? You're a drug addict.
I attempted.
Never happened?
No.
You, who are good at everything, you weren't able to commit suicide?
Correct.
Now, you told Chief Rizzo on May 17th that Jason was impulsive, correct?
I told him that he was impulsive. He has been, yes.
And you also told her on May 17th that you don't do anything without thinking, correct?
I said that, yes.
Now, on October 14th, the detective was asking you about Jason's plan, and there was some indication that you fixed his plan.
What do you mean by that?
That was your testimony on Friday, or excuse me, that was your interview with Detective Ogden. You fixed his plan because Jason would have failed.
There was no plan.
There was no plan?
I don't even know if Jason had a plan.
But you told the detective that you fixed his plan because Jason would have failed, correct?
I might have told him that, but that would be a lie.
But you did tell him that because we heard the video, correct?
Correct.
You also told the detective he would have been sloppy, correct?
Correct.
And Jason wanted to know how you were going to fix things, correct?
That's what I had said.
That's what you told the detective, right?
Correct.
And you told the detective that you invited Chris over to your house to have sex, dinner, and a present. And that invitation was sent on the 13th, correct?
It was supposed to be the 14th.
Well, the 14th is when he came over, but you actually communicated with him on the 13th, didn't you?
Yes. I told him I was sick.
You told him you were sick and you made arrangements for the next night, correct?
Correct.
So Chris came over at your invitation, correct?
Correct.
And you told the detective you were to participate by pushing or kicking him down the stairs, then doing whatever you needed to do, correct?
I told the detective that.
So there would be no need to push or kick him down the stairs unless you knew Jason was there, isn't that accurate?
I don't know if I can answer that either way.
Well, why would you push or kick him down the stairs unless Jason was down there?
That was a lie to the detective. So there was no other thought process about that.
So by lying to the detective, you're also lying to the jury?
I lied to the detective in saying that I was going to push him down the stairs or...
So you told the detective also that you had a pact made when married to kill lovers, right?
I told him that, yes.
And I think that you testified that that actually was an agreement, but you were joking around at the time. Is that accurate?
No, not actually. I said a pact is an agreement. There was never any agreement, but this was said on our wedding night by him.
Well, why don't you tell us exactly what was said on your wedding night?
He said that if I had ever cheated on him, or if vice versa, that the other one, that you would have to kill your significant other, and if you didn't, then the other would have to do it.
So that actually was discussed.
He had said it.
And what did you say?
I blew it off. I didn't think it was anything to take seriously.
Okay, so you didn't take that seriously, but yet you told the detective that when you're under investigation for a murder?
Yes.
That was a big joke to you?
None of this is a joke.
No? So you lied to the detective. Was it a big joke when you lied to the detective about this?
No.
Now, you told Detective Ogden you worked at a domestic violence shelter. You told Laura Frizzo you worked at a domestic violence shelter.
Correct.
You have a degree in psychology, correct?
Yes. Correct.
And a degree in sociology?
No.
Just took classes in sociology?
Yes.
So are you telling the jury that you didn't know how to get help?
I've been giving knowledge to go get help. I've been told how to get help.
Well, you actually worked in a place that gave people help, right?
Right.
So are you telling us that you didn't know how to get help?
In my situation, no.
No, you did not know how to get help. That's what you're telling us today.
Yes.
Now, you told Chief Rizzo and Detective Bellinger that Jason had a bad back, sciatica, kidney issues, and could barely walk. That was in November and October of 2014, is that accurate?
His bad back was due to sciatica.
What about the discs?
He's got, I think he had one bulging disc.
So are you denying that you told officers that Jason could barely walk because of these health issues?
No, I'm not denying that.
And you testified Friday that you moved here because of the medical marijuana for his pain issues, is that correct?
Jason chose to move up here. That was one of the reasons.
You moved up here also. Why did you move up here?
Because I went with him.
So he was hurting so bad he applied for Social Security disability, correct?
He applied for Social Security disability.
And in fact, you helped him with that application, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you wrote letters of support for him with that application, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you did all the work around the house, correct?
Most of it.
You went to work, made money to support both of you, right?
Yes.
You mowed the lawn, right?
Yes.
But on Friday, you testified he wasn't an invalid, that he could do things.
Correct.
So what kinds of things did he do?
Anything inside the house.
What do you mean, anything inside the house?
He'd help clean, cook, move things around. He just didn't do anything outside the house
And why didn't he do anything outside the house?
because he didn't want Social Security disability seeing him do those things.
And in fact, didn't you tell him not to do anything outside the house because he would mess up his Social Security claim?
Yes.
So when you submitted a letter to a court of law in support of him saying that he was barely able to function, that was a lie or that was the truth?
That would be a partial truth. And I say that because he didn't always have a bad back. He was able to do most things.
So you partially lied to the court of law about your husband's disability.
Yes.
Now let's talk about your drug use.
Okay.
I believe it was your testimony that you used drugs since high school?
Yes.
And your mother's testimony as well?
You're saying that she testified to that?
Yes. Did your mom try to get you into rehab?
She did a couple times, yes.
But you would not go?
I don't think I ever did, no.
Did you use anything you could get your hands on?
Most times.
What was your drug of choice?
It depends on the time.
What do you mean by that?
What are you asking?
I'm asking you what your drug of choice is.
Maybe ecstasy?
But if you couldn't get that, what would you use?
I guess it just depended on what was going on in my life.
Were pills the easiest for you to get?
Yes.
Other than marijuana, I suppose.
You can get pretty much anything, anytime you want, in most places.
How often would you use heroin?
Maybe a couple times a year.
And what was your preference as to how you would use it?
I had snorted it and I injected it.
You never got hooked on it though?
Hooked, I guess that's a poor way of wording it. Anytime you go back to something, you're still in addiction or you're still hooked, correct?
I wouldn't necessarily believe that with heroin if you're able to go for months at a time without using it.
Yeah, I guess it depends.
So you did not become addicted the first time on heroin like some people do?
Correct.
So using drugs is not a new thing for you, right?
Correct.
And your claim that you use drugs to numb the pain after a person's death, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
However, you used drugs all the way through since high school.
I wasn't using them every day like I was afterwards.
Now, you didn't have any withdrawals from drugs while you were in jail, did you?
I don't believe that's true.
Did Jason say that he wanted to move you from Indiana to get you away from drugs?
That was one of the things he had said.
And he never used any drugs other than marijuana on a regular basis?
That's not true.
What do you believe he used on a regular basis?
Hallucinogenics, pills, and then the marijuana.
Well, there's no indication in your text messages that he was using these items other than marijuana.
There's a lot of things in my text messages that weren't true.
So your drug-seeking behavior in your text messages was or was not true?
What do you mean?
Your text to various people trying to get drugs, that was or wasn't true?
That would probably be true.
Now, you heard your parents' testimony when they were here, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And you lived down the road from them in Indiana, is that right?
No, they were a couple blocks away.
Well, was it less than a mile away?
Yes.
And how often did you see them when you lived in Indiana, outside of their house?
When we went back or before?
Before.
Very often. A lot of my family worked with me.
Your brother did, right?
Yes, and my mother and my father as well.
So very often, would that be once a day?
It depends. During the summer, not as much.
Well, weren't you working on pools in the summer?
Correct.
And were they helping you with the pools in the summer?
Not every day. And we didn't always work together. There was more than one job per day.
So safe to say you'd see them several times a week?
Yes, correct.
And then when you lived with them in Indiana, how long did you live with them?
From when we went back?
Yes.
From March till maybe November. I don't know the exact month.
Did you see them every day when you lived with them from March to November?
Of course, yes.
Now, I believe your testimony on Friday, and I could have this wrong, so please correct me if it's wrong, was that you and Jason got in this horrible fight at American and ended up being a screaming match out in the parking lot?
Yes, in September of 2014.
And that's when your parents were here, right?
Correct.
And where were your parents when this screaming match was going on?
They were at the table when it started.
So they observed this screaming match at the table?
Most of it was outside afterwards.
So you heard your parents' testimony, right?
Yes.
And neither parent testified about this big screaming incident you claim occurred while you were at the American, did they?
I don't believe so.
And neither parent testified that they ever saw anything more than a verbal disagreement between you and Jason, correct?
I believe that's true.
And your mother, in fact, testified that Jason was very quiet when they were there for their visit. Isn't that accurate?
That's what she said.
Now, if it was such a terrible argument at that point in time, why not tell your mother or father about your marital problems while they were here?
Because I wanted them to believe I was stronger than I really was. I didn't want to be embarrassment or the shame for them.
Isn't it true that you had a video on your phone of you and Jason at Bomb Falls from that weekend? A video where you were smoking a joint with him and laughing?
Possibly, yes.
So it was a terrible weekend, huh?
Yes, it was.
In the last 4 or 5 years, how many times did you call the police on your husband?
Never.
Did you indicate to detective, or maybe this was actually in your testimony, did you say that you were just trying to survive?
Yes, I did.
Isn't it true that Jason would have been out of the picture if you reported him to police?
What do you mean?
If you reported what Jason did to the police, he would have been out of the picture and you could survive.
That's what you're saying? That's what the different detectives and officers have told me, yes.
Now, if I heard your testimony on Friday correctly, you stated he once put a 380 or a 30-06 to your head?
30-06.
And you continued to argue back and forth with him while he had this gun to your head?
It wasn't arguing. It was more like upset, I guess.
Well, what were you doing? I think your testimony was that you argued, but maybe you can explain it to us.
We argued up to that point.
Then
I didn't know what was going to happen. I figured he was going to shoot me.
And he pulled the trigger?
Yes, he did.
You indicated that he did this at least 20 times with the loaded gun?
With the loaded gun, yes.
Yet you didn't go to the domestic violence shelter, correct?
Correct.
You didn't call the police, correct?
Correct.
You never told your parents, correct?
Correct.
Never mentioned this in any of your texts to Chris or Eric that Jason was abusive, did you?
I don't believe so, no.
No, I think you also testified that you believe that he shot at you in the basement. Is that right?
I know he shot at me in the basement.
And you indicated, where did those bullets go?
The pieces of the bullets went in a hole in the floor.
What did he hit when he shot at you in the basement?
The concrete. It wasn't me. It was close to my head.
So you're saying that he hit the concrete, but there was no ricochet?
There might have been, I don't know.
Well, wouldn't you know him? He was shooting at you.
There's a lot of things that you may not be aware of when things happen.
Now, wouldn't you agree it's easy to blame Jason Cochran because he isn't here to defend himself?
I don't think that's true.
No, you don't think it's convenient he's not here to defend himself? Well, why not blame him? I mean, he was going to take the blame for it all anyway, right?
He was never going to take the blame for it.
Well, that's what you told your parents.
It is.
So that was a lie too?
Yes.
You also said in that letter that you weren't a victim and that you weren't going to play the victim to the end. Isn't that true?
That's what I said, yes.
So that was a lie because here you are playing the victim, right?
I'm not playing anything.
Well, you said in your letter you weren't going to play the victim. So which is it?
I was a victim in a sense.
In a sense. Well, tell us what sense.
To me, at the time, I didn't think I was a victim. I figured I deserved it.
Now, but you didn't think you were a victim? You thought you deserved it?
Say that again?
You didn't think that you were a victim? You thought you deserved it?
I thought I deserved it, the way I was treated.
But you used the words victim. I didn't use the words victim. That's your words to your parents, right?
In the letter, yes.
Now, let's talk about the disposal of the gun. Tell me about how that gun ended up in the pit.
Jason had ground down the wood part, I guess the butt of the gun. There might have been more that was wood. He had turned it into like sawdust and put it in a bucket with dirt and then covered it back up. There was a magazine and a barrel, and there might have been one other piece. The magazine was found in the house afterwards, but the barrel he had me hold in my leg. It was tucked in my shoe, and had me walk to the pit with him.
So what time of day did you guys go to the pit with the barrel?
I don't know the time. It was dark.
And you said he had you do this. Was he holding a gun at the time?
It wasn't in his hand.
It wasn't in his hand?
Not at that time.
Where was it?
It was on him, on his person.
What gun was it?
I believe 38 or 380. It was
Okay,
a
now-
handgun.
It was a handgun? You indicated it was dark when you walked to the pit?
Correct. The only thing that was light was I think there's a street light there.
And then you threw it in the pit?
No, Jason did.
No, you have never testified before or even talked before about if it was dark over a year and a half later.
There was I guess like a little fence that you get in. When you go down this little dirt trail, or gravel, I don't know what it was, there was a fence. I think we had to walk around it, and then there was a pile where you put debris. I think we had taken a Christmas tree at one point there or something, maybe yard waste, and it was right there by that.
Now, isn't it true that spot is the exact same spot someone zoomed in on your computer on October 8th, 2014?
I have no clue.
Well, you saw the pictures, correct?
I believe I saw the pictures, but I don't believe it was.
You were here for Mr. Niger's testimony, correct? The pictures were up on PowerPoint. How'd you know it was the exact spot unless you picked out the spot prior to Chris's murder?
Because there was a debris pit right there.
But that debris pit is nowhere near where the edge of the cliff is it?
Yeah, I believe it was right there.
Now, you took care of the gun, and you took care of the car, didn't you?
What do you mean by took care of it?
You picked the spot for where the car should be parked.
I suggested it, yes.
And your training and experience in forensics told you it would be a bad idea to put the car near the crime scene, right?
I wanted it to be found.
Wouldn't you agree it's a bad idea to put the car near the crime scene?
A bad idea to do what?
To put the car near the crime scene?
I have no clue.
No, your training and experience in forensics doesn't tell you it's a bad idea to put a car near the crime scene?
Where do you consider the crime scene?
Your house. Are you telling us there's another crime scene?
No.
Because I'd be interested in hearing that if there is.
No.
So did you tell Chief Rizzo that you took Chris's car keys and put them into a soda cup from the gas station, threw it into the trash?
I did tell her that.
So, accurate or a lie?
That was a lie.
Why would you lie about that?
Because I lied about a lot of things.
Why lie about something as insignificant as putting the keys in a soda can and throwing in the trash?
Why lie about any of it?
Well, that's what we want to know from you today. So why don't you tell us?
I wanted to be made to be seen as this horrible person, this monster, because I felt guilty that Chris wasn't here.
You called yourself a monster, didn't you?
I did.
You told your parents that you were a monster.
I did.
In your goodbye letter. Wouldn't you want your parents in your goodbye letter to think of you as as their good child? Their strong, independent child?
At one point I was strong and independent, but to me I would consider myself a monster because here I am, I'm here, and he's not. If he would have never met me, he'd be here today.
So you picked the spot for the car, and you actually were able to convince Jason to cut him up instead of putting his hands and head in acid, right?
That's not completely true.
Well, tell us what is completely true.
I told him that he would kill us with fumes from the acid if he used acid.
And did you tell police it would take gallons of acid to dispose of the body?
Yes.
Did you tell police that someone would notice you buying that much acid?
I believe I did.
How do you know how much acid it takes to dispose of a body?
I know how much acid that I used for like swimming pools, and I also, in the class that I had heard a couple things, and I knew that it would be a lot. I have no hands-on experience or no exact knowledge about that.
Who took Chris's clothes off to cut him up?
I didn't know if his clothes came off, so if they did, Jason had taken them off.
Well, didn't you tell Chief Rizzo that his shirt at a minimum came off because it would be hard to cut him up with his clothes on?
I believe he had a striped shirt, and he might have had like a different shirt over that.
You picked the spot to dump his body, correct?
It was a suggestion, yes.
And you took care of the gun just like you always took care of things, didn't you?
What do you mean, took care of it?
Threw it, took care of it, disposed of it.
No.
Now let's talk about your marriage. I believe it was your testimony on Friday that your marriage was done before you moved up here?
Correct.
Didn't you buy a house in September of 2014?
Yes.
Why would you buy a house if your marriage was done?
It was, I guess, easier to buy it than it was to rent.
Well, I think in fact your testimony was that you were separated since May of 2014. Why buy a house with Jason if you're separated from him and your marriage is done?
He wasn't going to leave.
If your marriage was done before moving here, why not choose Chris instead of Jason?
If my marriage was done before I moved here, I was living with him. I didn't want a serious relationship.
You're telling us you didn't want a serious relationship with Chris?
I didn't want a serious relationship with anybody. I had to make things easier or better for me.
Now, Jason wasn't the only one with jealous tendencies, was he? You had some jealous tendencies as well, didn't you?
In the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah. Isn't it true you used a sawzall to tear up Jason's girlfriend's car?
No, that's not true.
Really? You didn't tell that to your brother Colton, that you used a sawzall to tear up his ex-girlfriend's car?
I said the sawzall was used to cut up a car, but I did not use it.
And Jason didn't tell your brother the same thing, that you used the sawzall to cut up his ex-girlfriend's car?
Correct.
Now, with respect to affairs, you initially told the detective that it was only Eric and Chris, correct?
Up here, yes.
Then it was Eric, Chris, and maybe Ken, correct?
Ken was never a partner or anything other than just a friend or somebody I talked to.
Well, you went out on a date with him, right?
It wasn't a date.
It wasn't a date, so if Ken told somebody else it was a date, that was inaccurate?
That's correct.
So we have Eric, Chris, and then we have Jessica, right?
Not up here.
No, I'm not talking about up here, I'm talking about all of your affairs.
Okay.
Eric, Chris, Jessica, correct?
Jessica was somebody that me and Jason had sex with.
Then it was Eric, Chris, Jessica, and I think you told the detective there was 2 guys before you moved to Michigan as well?
Correct.
And this Ken that you were friends with, he was also married, wasn't he?
I'm not for sure. I know he was married at one point.
You didn't tell the officers right away about the 2 previous ones in Indiana, did you?
No.
Now, I believe your testimony on Friday was you met Chris because he was on the hiring panel when you got hired, is that right?
That was the first time I had done it. Correct.
That was in May of 2014, right?
Yes.
You started talking, right?
Yes.
And in June you started going out with him, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And I wrote this down because I thought it was interesting. I believe your testimony was you knew it was wrong to be dating someone at work, correct?
Correct.
Not you knew it was wrong to date someone while you were still married?
Correct.
So are you positive on when you started seeing Chris?
Not for sure, no.
Well, you told us Friday and you told us today that it was June. So is that or is that not accurate?
To my memory, I believe it was June.
Well, you have a flawless memory, right? Isn't that what you told the detective at the reenactment on March 30th?
That's what I told him. But also on March 30th, I wasn't, as you know, I wasn't in my right mind. I was high at the time.
So you told detectives you communicated with Chris by either cell phone or via text or via phone call, correct?
Correct.
And isn't it true that there was not one cell phone call or text between you and Chris prior to July 27th, 2014?
I don't know for sure. I was also told that not all the texts were there, so I don't know.
Well, you've had a chance to look at all of the evidence in this case, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And you've looked at the phone records, correct?
Correct.
And you've looked at the text messages that were taken off your phone, correct?
Correct.
And you could have cross-referenced each one of those just as we did, correct?
Yes.
So it would be accurate to say that there weren't any phone calls or messages between you and Chris before July 27th, wouldn't you say?
I will say yes.
Now, isn't it true also that there was not one phone call or text between Jason's phone and Chris Regan's phone before October 14th, 2014?
That's true.
So, your testimony Friday and your testimony today was that you and Jason were separated in May of 2014, correct?
Correct.
That's not entirely accurate, is it?
We were separated in Indiana as well.
Okay. Well, you told your parents in your goodbye letter that you lied to all 3 of the men and let them think that they were all the only one in your life, correct?
That's what was put in the letter, yes.
So if you lied to Chris about Jason and you lied to Chris about Eric and you let him believe he was the only one in your life and that you were separated from Jason, right?
I didn't want I didn't want Jason to find out about me being with anybody else.
So you lied to Jason?
Yes.
But why lie to him if you're separated? Why hide it?
I guess unless you're in my position, it's a little different.
Well, here's your chance to tell us why you hid it. Why you hid it?
Because I know he was a very jealous person.
But you were separated, so what did it matter?
It shouldn't have mattered, but it did.
Isn't it true in your November 10th, 2014 interview with Chief Frizzo that you told her you never intended to divorce or leave Jason?
I might have said that, yes. That's not true, though.
So, Are you telling us today that Chris wanted to keep this relationship on the down low because of work?
Yes, and because I was married.
Okay. Well, if that's true, then why park your car on the street at the corner of 4th Avenue and US 2, the only stoplight in the river?
I parked there and at IGA.
But anyone could see you if you parked on the street, right?
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to keep it on the down low, why park on the street?
If I wanted to keep it on the down low, it shouldn't have really been there, but it was. That was the choice that we had made.
Now, after that argument with Chris Regan, the beginning of October, you didn't see him again until the night of his death, did you?
What argument?
The argument regarding people at work finding out about your relationship.
You're saying I didn't get that till the 14th?
No, you got that October 4th, 2014. You didn't see Chris again until October 14th, correct?
I don't know.
You don't know if you saw Chris in those 10 days between your argument with him and October 14th?
I'm pretty sure I seen him a couple times now.
You think you did?
Yes.
Okay. Well, why would he text you then and say, I thought you fell off the face of the earth?
Because it had been a few days.
A few days?
Yeah.
And that would generate a text that said, I thought you fell off the face of the earth.
Yes.
Which one of these guys was the love of your life? Jason? Chris? Eric?
I loved Jason, and at one point I was in love with him. For Chris, I was in love with him. And Eric was a good friend. We had talked about a lot of stuff, and he made things a lot easier.
So you love Jason and love Chris at the same time?
I wasn't in love with Jason.
But you loved him?
Yes.
So you were cheating on Chris with Jason and Eric, correct?
Correct.
You were cheating on Eric with Chris and Jason, correct?
I guess yes.
And you were cheating on Jason with Chris and Eric, correct?
Yes.
So that's how you show your love, correct?
I don't believe that's true.
Did you tell Eric that Chris was stalking you and was annoying you and wanted to be with you all the time?
He was calling me a lot. He's seen the texts and the calls that he was calling a lot. It was bothering me.
It was bothering you that he was calling you all the time?
After I had just left, yes.
This guy that you're in love with, the love of your life,
Yes.
was bothering you?
Yes.
Now, I thought that your testimony on Friday was that you were trying to slow things down with Chris.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
I was being pulled in all different directions. There's a lot of things that I was battling with just in my own head. I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I was overwhelming myself with relationships.
So how did you go about slowing things down with him?
We didn't see each other as much.
And what do you mean by as much?
Before we would see each other up to 5 days, sometimes more per week. We might have been seeing each other 2 or 3 times a week.
So if you were slowing things down with Chris, why text him after his death?
Jason had me text him. He had me call him as well.
Did he have a gun in his hand at that time too?
No, I did not.
Why did you go to his house after his death and you were slowing things down with him?
Because I went to get my wedding ring.
Well, you knew he was dead, right?
Yes.
If you were separated from Jason, why would you go get your wedding ring?
Because I left it there last time we had sex.
Why wear a wedding ring if you're separated?
So wore it.
Now, did you say that you filled out divorce papers online?
I printed them out from the internet and then I filled them out on a paper copy.
Okay, and were those Michigan divorce papers or Indiana divorce papers?
I believe Indiana.
And when did that occur?
I don't know the exact time. I
Well-
actually printed them out a couple times.
Before or after Chris's death?
Before.
And you said that you had printed them out a couple times?
Yes.
Why don't you tell me what you need to do or what you need to file to get a divorce?
What I needed to do.
What do you need to file to get a divorce?
I just printed out a pack of papers and filled them out. All you had to do was take them to, I believe, the clerk's office. If it's if he went along with it. Jason said yes, he would, give me that divorce. Not much else that has to be done. But if he contested it, then it would be a little different. Then there's a lot of different court proceedings for it.
So when was the last time that you did this?
I don't know the exact month.
Well, you have a flawless memory. When was the last time?
I said I had a flawless memory. There's a lot of things I don't remember.
Well, let's talk about that, Ms. Cochran.
Okay.
Didn't you just give your mom her tax advisor's telephone number? And you hadn't contacted that tax advisor in over 3 years?
Probably, yes.
You spit it off from your memory during a jail phone call, didn't you?
Yes, numbers I don't forget.
So I'm asking you for a date. That's a number, right?
But it goes with the situation, I don't remember.
Well, Jason's horribly abusive. You want to be divorced from him, and you don't remember when you tried to file for divorce?
Correct. I'd asked for divorce numerous times.
Well, you don't have to ask for divorce, right? You can go file and get one, correct?
It's not that easy.
Really?
Really?
Isn't our divorce rate over 50% in this nation?
Yes, it is.
Now, when you were talking with Chief Frizzo, didn't you tell her that you had homicidal thoughts every day?
I told her that. That was a lie.
And didn't you tell her that you were born this way?
I did say that. I said that to both her and Detective Cochran.
And didn't you tell her that there were others out there like you?
Yes, I did.
And that evil finds evil and recognizes it in other people?
Yes.
Now, Jason's book, I think one of the things that he put in his book was monsters know the smell of other monsters, the same way that the hunted knows the hunter, correct?
Correct.
And you're indicating that what we have is actually not the book, it's just the chapters, right?
The outline, I believe, yes.
Where's the book at?
It was in the house last night.
And in this outline, doesn't he indicate the wife saves the day?
That's on the last page of the last chapter, yes.
And doesn't he also, or I think you testified on Friday that that was an autobiographical book, right?
To my belief, a lot of it was autobiographical, yeah.
And you know what autobiographical means, right?
Correct.
It means it's about Jason's life.
Correct.
So when he says wife saves the day, that's autobiographical?
I have no clue what that meant.
Now, with respect to Jason's mental health disorder, what day did he get out of the hospital?
The 22nd.
And what day
September.
what day did he go into the hospital?
18th.